David to present the first paper, which is on numerical quadrature for parametric domains. David?
Okay, hi, thanks. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yes, I had to stop sharing. Give me a second.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for the introduction. So my name is David Gunderman, and I'm a PhD student in applied math at the University of Colorado Boulder in the United States. And my research focuses on numerical analysis and computational geometry for partial differential equations. And so today, I'll present some preliminary work on a high-order mesh-free quadrature scheme that we're developing for trimmed curved parametric domains. So before I get into the details, I'll just quickly go through a summary. As you all know, high-order trimmed geometries like NURBS have been popular for decades in shape modeling. And here's an example of a trimmed geometry bounded by four trimmed curved parametric surfaces, in this case NURBS. And three of these surfaces are trimmed, and on the right you could see the original tensor product NURBS patches, where the trimming curves are shown as dashed lines. Okay, so in this project, we're interested in trying to efficiently integrate functions over the interior of these types of regions. And I'll talk about more the motivation and applications in a minute, but traditional integration strategies currently used for this problem can be low order convergent or can require complicated meshing. And so our goal is to develop a high order quadrature scheme which does not need volumetric or surface meshing. And the general idea behind our approach is that we're going to rely on generalized Stokes theorem and Green's theorem to transform the volume integral on the interior into a sum of line integrals along a polynomial approximation of the trimming curve. Okay, so why is this problem important? Well, there's two main applications that we're interested in. The first is Lagrange remap methods, finite element methods. And in Lagrange methods, the mesh is allowed to move with the fluid flow. And it's allowed to move until the mesh becomes too deformed for effective analysis. So you can see this middle image in this top left picture is quite deformed. So once that happens, the field variables like density are projected onto a new higher quality mesh. And in order for integrated quantities like volumes or mass to be conserved, you have to accurately integrate over the intersections between the source mesh elements, the bad mesh, and the new mesh elements. And these intersections are actually regions bounded by trimmed high order parametric surfaces. Okay, and so then the second method that we're interested in applying this to is immersed boundary finite element method, which has become pretty popular in the past decade or two. And in immersed methods, the geometric boundary, like this gear here, is overlaid onto a simpler background mesh. And integrals over cut cell geometries, like this pink cell, have to be computed to high accuracy during simulation. So common techniques now, like I said, are either require potentially complicated meshing, high order meshing, or are low order convergent in the case of adaptive quadtree, for example. So our method computes these integrals to high order without the need for interior meshing by transforming everything to the boundaries. Okay, so now I'll just give a brief introduction to the method, and you can see the short paper in the poster proceedings for more details. But basically there's three steps to our proposed algorithm. And so I'll demonstrate this on this region down here, R. We're trying to integrate some three-dimensional function over the region R formed by the intersection of these two surfaces. So the first step is to approximate the true trimming curves with high order polynomial curves. And so those are these C primes. And then the second step is to convert this volume integral over R into a sum of two surface integrals over the two bounding surfaces. And of course, there could be more bounding surfaces. And that's using Stokes theorem. And then the third step is to convert those surface integrals into a sum of line integrals over the component approximated trimming curves. Okay, and so because all of these steps are done to high order, the entire algorithm is high order convergent. Okay, and so just some preliminary results. We're still in the process of this whole algorithm, especially the SSI part. So right now we just have used an analytic representation of the trimming curve to produce this plot. And you can see here, as expected, we're achieving exponential convergence when those trimming curves are given exactly. And we need far, far fewer quadrature points to attain machine precision than Mathematica's and Integrate, for example. Okay, and so if we did approximate those trimming curves using polynomials, we would expect high order convergence. So next steps, the first one, the most important one, is to actually implement that efficient, robust SSI algorithm to approximate those trimming curves. And then the second next step is to actually apply these methods to Lagrange remap and immerse boundary finite element methods. So before I stop, I just want to thank really quickly my two advisors, John Evans, my PhD advisor at Boulder, and Kenny Weiss, my mentor at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. So thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for a great presentation. Does anyone else in the audience have any questions? In the meantime, I had a question. So you mentioned that you had two stages of approximations here, right? Like you have first the conversion to the volume to the surface, and then the surface to the line integral. Do you know the relative accuracy of each one of those, in the sense that you could stop at the surface integral stage and then we can compute the surface integral?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think the main reason we don't want to do that is just because in our minds you would need to mesh the surface in order to compute the surface integral, and so that's like a step we just don't want to do. But it could be that would be just as efficient. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is if you're dealing with only NURBS or parametric surfaces, then that is much more easier than a generalized surface. Obviously, in a generalized surface, you need to mesh, but with a parametric surface, you already have the parameterization. So you could essentially limit to the non-trimmed regions of the surface, and that might help.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'd love to talk more online if you have.
Yes, definitely. And I have some suggestions on surface-surface intersections, because
I know you've had
long back. Yeah, so
topic. So
sounds good. Does anyone else have any questions? Looks like not that many. Anyways, please feel free to interact with David over on Discord if you have any specific questions.
Thanks,
if
everyone.
not, if not, we'll go over to the next presentation, and Aitya will be introducing them.
Hi, everyone. So the next presentation is by Joseph Masterjohn on constructing the arrangement of algebraic surfaces in a bounding box. So Joseph, you can present.
Thank you. Let me just go ahead and present my screen here. And can everybody see and hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yep, okay, so thank you. So my name's Joseph Masterjohn. I'm a PhD student at the University of Miami in Miami, Florida, United States. I'm gonna present some preliminary work on constructing the arrangement of algebraic surfaces in a bounding box. So for those who might not be familiar, an arrangement is a fundamental geometric structure. And what it is basically a graph mapping the topology of a set of geometric objects. In this instance, we're interested in algebraic surfaces. It's easier to explain in 2D with algebraic curves. So this is an example of an arrangement of algebraic curves. The fundamental pieces are vertices, edges, and faces. So vertices being either singular points or intersections of two or more curves, edges being the segments of the curves between vertices, and faces being semi-algebraic regions bounded by edges. And of course, in 3D, we get one more fundamental object, which is what we call a facet, but this is the three-dimensional semi-algebraic region bounded by faces, these two-dimensional faces of the arrangement. So the fundamental task of computing the arrangement in 3D turns out to be actually just computing the vertices of the arrangement first, the intersections of triples of these surfaces. So one thing I should say is that we are trying to create a robust algorithm, robust in the sense of computational geometry. And we make an assumption that the inputs are all in general position, and if not, we perturb the inputs so that they are. So we define a vertice in this algorithm to be just the intersection of three surfaces. So the first fundamental piece of work is a subdivision solver for finding the intersections of these triples of algebraic surfaces. And we have some preliminary results on speed up doing this on a GPU and in a totally robust sense. So this is not, we don't have a minimum epsilon where we say any feature smaller than epsilon is not guaranteed to be found. This is the topologically correct set of zero order set of vertices. So what we're actually interested in the end is this graph structure, which is the adjacency relationships between all the features of the arrangement itself. And so what we guarantee at the end is the correct topological graph and the ability to generate any feature of the arrangement to an arbitrary level of precision. So I want to know this vertice to an arbitrary number of digits in each coordinate, or a point on one of the edges, so on and so forth, as well as nesting information, other things. So, so most of the computational time is in the subdivision solver finding the vertices. After that, we create a binary space partition to isolate all of the intersections, and we have a few predicates on the leaf nodes of this BSP, where we can show if all leaf nodes of the BSP can be verified by these predicates, that we show that it implies that we can construct the arrangement out of this BSP structure for pairs of surfaces. So there's a lot of details to what those predicates are, and then proving that they imply the arrangement itself. One other kind of caveat is that faces of the arrangement might not have trivial topology. So there can be holes in the faces of arrangements in 3D. So what we do is we also make sure that every face of the arrangement that we construct is simply connected, and we show that to do that, it requires to split a surface in the BSP, and that problem reduces to just finding another set of intersections of triples of algebraic surfaces, this time involving the partial derivatives of the functions themselves. So I just wanted to show a video or two of the actual software that we use to debug now, but eventually will become the software to actually introspect the arrangements. So this is a single surface, and what we're showing is the bounding box and the boundary curve information. And so the surface is actually just triangulated, and the boundary intersections are curve traced, but curve traced robustly, so we're not missing components of it, of the curve, or there's no missing bubbles of the surface. And then here's just a short video of same software showing the introspection of three surfaces, and the red curves that are being traced are the intersection curves of two surfaces, and you can turn on and off the surface view to introspect the actual intersections and edges of the arrangement itself. Eventually, we'd like to have point location queries and things like that in this software. But for now, it's just mostly for debugging. And you can see this is the parameterized curve tracing in action. So that's probably about all my time, but thank you very much. And if you have any questions, feel free to let me know or put it on the Discord, and I'd love to talk. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. So let's see if there are any questions. Meanwhile, I had a question. So you said you're doing all the computations on the GPU for computing all the vertices and the intersection, right?
As a preliminary step,
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
But the topological graph information is not computed on the GPU. It is done offline.
No, this is all on the CPU,
Okay.
single-threaded algorithm. The GPU actually just serves as a preliminary step to basically eliminate regions where we know surfaces do not intersect. So
Okay.
it's you can verify on a whole 3D interval with the Descartes method that a function is constant on that 3D interval. And we can do that for large regions, and the algorithm is sensitive to the size of the box that it's operating on. So if we can eliminate large regions and focus on a lot smaller regions for the actual root finding algorithm, that's the speed up from the GPU.
Okay. Thank you. There's one question. Are you able to see this chat screen?
Oh yeah, let me pull it up. What is the degree of the surfaces that you've mentioned? So the degree that we've tested up to with reasonable times are up to degree 9 and 10, which is significantly higher than a lot of the algebraic methods for doing this, which are restricted really to low degree, maybe 3, 4, or 5 at most, depending on how long you want to wait. And how are we representing the intersection curves? So the intersection curves actually just as a system of two polynomials, so really just by the topology information of the intersections with the binary space partition edges and cells. So it's really just a linear representation between two intersection points on the boundary, and we can verify certain things about the tangent of the curve within that cell. Then we can ensure certain things about the topology. So it's really a set of boundary intersections and predicates verifying certain things about the tangent of the curve in that cell. So okay.
All right. Thanks a lot, Joseph. So looks like the third speaker is not there. Is anyone there for the third poster? Like the title is Page Rank and the K-means clustering algorithm by Mustafa Hajij, Ayad Saeed, or Robert Todd. So if
if any of the presenters from the third poster is there, please send us a note, or looks like not. Let's wait for a few more minutes to see if they join. In the meantime, if any of you have any other questions for the previous two presenters, they have extra time now to answer this if you have any questions.
also, there was a note on the chat about the poster proceedings, the links of the poster proceedings. So if you would like, you could go and visit the pages to get the proceedings.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I have one more question for Joseph, I think, on that algebraic surfaces. Is
Yes,
he there?
please go ahead.
Yep.
Yeah.
Still
So
there.
you mentioned about the subdivision solver, right? I think are you talking about the Seagull solver, or you're coming up with your own solver?
No, this is a custom solver that we roll ourselves, mostly because we're using our own home rolled interval arithmetic to do the numerics here.
Okay.
I think the solver that you're talking about in Seagull is called Exacus.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is an algebraic solver for polynomials with, I think, rational coefficients.
Okay.
So one thing that we can do is we can have the coefficients of the polynomials be represented as algebraic numbers as well as just rational inputs. We're not so sure. We're not claiming that the subdivision solver that we have is really any good or competitive. We've thought about using different homotopy methods for computing the intersections. If it happens to be faster, it's really just a sub problem that we need to solve. Computing the actual arrangement structure after we have the BSP and the intersections is, I don't want to say trivial, but time-wise, it's trivial compared to solving the actual polynomial system.
So how do you guarantee robustness of these intersection points or curves?
So this is something we detail in the paper, and it's also been spoken about before in a lot of different subdivision solver literature, specifically Elber. But if we can get a 3D interval that we can verify in interval arithmetic that a certain predicate holds, and what that predicate really is the determinant of the Jacobian of the polynomial system represented by the three surfaces. And that's a rather stringent condition, but if you can show that determinant has constant sign on the interval, that's a guarantee that there is at most one intersection within the interval, and then a sequence of other such predicates to do that verification.
Are you also planning to use the exact arithmetic after you guarantee certain things and then to round the root much better, or no? Because exact would be a little slower, I think.
No, we don't so far. We just use a multi-precision arithmetic and a Newton method to shrink the interval if requested. So if you wanted higher precision, we offer that with a multiple precision rational arithmetic.
Good, quite good. I am happy to hear degrees like 9 and 10. Usually people talk about 3 or 4 and maybe maximum 5, I think. Yeah.
Right. We hope to get 9 and 10 at a almost real time, whatever that might mean. But for yeah,
good.
The time scales here are a little different. So,
sure.
Yeah. Thank you for the questions.
Sure.
All right. Is there still anyone from poster 3? I just shared that poster itself on Zoom. Hopefully, if anyone is interested in this topic, maybe you can post them on their Discord channel and have some additional discussion over there. If not, thanks for joining in on the second poster session. As Aditya mentioned, all the poster proceedings are now available online, and you can download and get additional information. If you have any other questions, please join us on the Discord channel, and I hope you enjoyed the virtual solid modeling conference, this PMSMI. Thanks very much, and thanks Aditya for helping host today's session.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good rest of the conference. I think there's still one more session left. So bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
See you guys. Bye.